Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Chelsea are off to winning ways at Stamford Bridge, and they did it at the expense of Arsenal. But where did they go right? Where did Arsenal go wrong? And who was the key player for Chelsea? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Chelsea beat Arsenal. So Chelsea, Arsenal, both sides looking to finish in the top four, both sides with new managers, but Chelsea were off to winning ways here at Stamford Bridge. In today's video, we're going to break down how Chelsea started so well, why Arsenal recovered, and how Chelsea were able to see off the game. When we do break it down, we have Chelsea in what is a 4-3-3, Morata up front, Willian and Pedro on the flanks. In midfield, they went with Jorginho, Conte, and Ross Barkley. We look at Arsenal, Tyrrell on the bench, Ramsey on the bench, Lacazette on the bench, which means that they go with Aubameyang up front. Mesut Ozil goes back to his preferred central role. Out in wider areas, they have Iwobi and Mkhitaryan, and in midfield, they go with Guendouzi and Xhaka. What went right with Chelsea at the start? Well, they pressed very well, and Arsenal did it, which allowed space for Chelsea's players to dominate. We look at Chelsea's pressing at the start. They looked to press from the front, and they knew that they wanted to do that based on the fact that's how Sarri wants his team to play, and the fact that Arsenal struggle against it. They struggle against Manchester City. Cech isn't great playing with the ball out of the back or having the ball at his feet, and Socrates and Mustafi can make errors when players get close to them and look to win the ball back. So what did Arsenal end up doing? Well, they try to push the center backs out wide. What would happen was that they'd have Morata push on to Cech. They'd have Willian and Pedro look to win the ball from the center backs, and they'd have the shuttlers push out into wider areas, which obviously would leave the midfield a bit exposed. But what would happen was that they were unable to play out the back, and that was a big issue. The other way, the alternative that they did go with was the fact that they had Morata out up front. They pushed the shuttlers out on the center backs, and if they knew that they weren't going to get the ball into the wider areas and midfielders were dropping off in Xhaka and Guendouzi, they'd have the Chelsea central midfielders pushing out into those center areas, and the wider players would just ensure that the passes out into the fullbacks were cut off when they were pressing. So that was how Chelsea really did stop Arsenal from playing out the back. We look at how Arsenal tried to do it well. They obviously want to do something similar. The problem here was that they had Ozil and Aubameyang pushing from the front. We saw last week Aaron Ramsey stepping to Fernandinho, ensuring that he couldn't play forward. That was pivotal for Manchester City. They weren't able to play through the center of the pitch, and Arsenal were doing a good job in that regard. Ozil, different prospect, not renowned for his pressing jobs, actually much maligned for it. And again, here, he didn't really do a good job. Jorginho was finding space in deeper positions. He was dictating the tempo of the game, controlling the tempo, and playing forward passes. And now Arsenal were often in 3v2s in that situation. You have Azpilicueta, you have Marcos Alonso pushing forward. You can't really leave Barkley and Conte. It's more of a midfield triangle, so they had to take the gamble. They try to take it with Ozil pressing off into Rudiger. We'd have Jorginho step in, and then he would play the pass out to him. Jorginho was key in the first half. All three of them were key in the first half. Jorginho pushing forward, looking to play passes in behind for Ross Barkley. Didn't really work out, but it showed his intent from that standpoint. You had Luis pushing forward, playing balls over the top, looking to get Pedro in behind, looking to get Conte to push forward to play in behind. They were making darting runs. Rudiger stepping forward as well, playing diagonals out to Willian when he did decide to hug the touchline to ensure that Chelsea had width. But that is where Chelsea were getting forward. They often had 3v2 in those situations, and they were making it count. And the other aspect where Chelsea was finding a lot of joy was down the left through Willian, and based on the fact that he was able to pull Bellerin out of position, when we look at him dropping off and picking up the ball with his back to goal, that was pivotal to the opening goal. Drops off, plays it to Jorginho. Jorginho instantly plays the pass into Alonso, running off Mkhitaryan. Alonso breaks into the box. Pedro breaks into the box behind the slow Arsenal backline. He plays the cross goal. Pedro taps it in. We look at another aspect where he's hugging the touchline, like I said. Diagonals are being played out to him. There was one instance where he ran at Bellerin, cut on the outside with his pace. His cross was overhit. We look at another opportunity, 2v2. What happens here is that Mkhitaryan sticks with him. Bellerin sticks with Alonso. He plays the pass in behind for Alonso. Alonso's cross is overhit. Willian was also cutting in from the left-hand side, pulling Bellerin everywhere, looking to find Pedro, make a run across the center backs, played the reverse pass in. Nothing really stemmed from it, but again, we were seeing different elements of Willian breaking in behind to pick up diagonals, but he was looking to give Bellerin a go, and he did a good job. You look at the second goal that Chelsea scored within the opening 20 minutes, just a simple high line, like I said, no real pressure on the ball. They weren't getting pressure from deep. Azpilicueta clips the ball over the top. What happens here is Morata makes the run across Socrates. Mustafi covers, but who covers Mustafi? Socrates jogging back, Bellerin jogging back. Morata cuts by him, places a shot past check. Chelsea up 2-0 within the opening 20 minutes. You're thinking, okay, they're going to win this game with ease, cruise on to another 3 points and move forward. Doesn't happen like that. Once they dropped off, moved into more of a 4-5-1, which is the defensive version of a 4-3-3, they conceded chances and Arsenal made them pay. When they move into that 4-5-1, what happens is that the wider players tucked in a bit narrow, and Arsenal had to adapt to that. They were looking to push men forward. They were looking to get a goal. What happens here is the center backs obviously push forward, but what Arsenal did was that they pushed the full backs forward. Monreal, Bellerin pick up higher positions. They have Mkhitaryan pulling off the right so that there's more space for Bellerin to push forward. Guendouzi and Jacques already in that midfield space. You have Ozil floating around, so they kind of have an overload in that central area. Wolby's hugging the touchline as well. And what you have here now is that they have options in wider areas, and Chelsea didn't know how to cope, and they looked a bit fatigued, and they switched off, and Arsenal made them pay. You look at the opening stages, Mustafi playing a pass into Aubameyang, looking to peel off Luis. Luis didn't want to stay tight to him. He didn't want to get turns. He didn't want to get burned for pace, so he's kept off a few yards, but tracked his movement. Aubameyang makes that run into that right half space, fires a tame effort on goal. We look at one of the opening chances that we really see these overloads starting to really happen in the half spaces. We have Guendouzi push forward, play a pass in between the space where Alonso is. He's tucked in narrow. Bellerin pushes in. What happens is that Mkhitaryan makes a darting run, drags the defenders out of position. He pulls it back for Aubameyang. Aubameyang skies his effort. But we could break down all the chances. They're all very similar. But basically what stems from it is this. When you drop into a 4-5-1 and the wide players push forward, you expect Pedro and Willian to come out into those areas. They're supposed to close their markers down. That wasn't happening. At worst, most times when we see a back three playing and you have the wider players pushing out, you'd have the shuttlers pushing out. But not even the shuttlers were pushing into those positions. But predominantly that is down to Willian and Pedro. So when they're not going out there, what happens is that the center backs have to go out there. And what does this leave? When we look at the right, we have Bellerin out. Alonso pushes forward. Mkhitaryan can dart into that space, and that's what he was doing. It's either Luis comes out, but Luis is obviously occupied with Mkhitaryan, so Jorginho has to come out. When Jorginho came out, he wasn't close enough. He wasn't cutting off the angle for the pullback, and they were getting the pullback across goal. The first one, Iwobi, again, it's just Iwobi getting across Azpilicueta, firing a shot in. Another opportunity, does the same movement. He fires a shot inches wide of the net. But you have to think, how are you not stopping this? Chelsea's midfield is simply watching. They're watching the play unfold. No one looking to close down markers. No one looking to cut off spaces, and they switched off. That was a big issue. We look at the left-hand side. There was one issue, and there were warning signs that Pedro wasn't tracking back. There was one where we had to see Azpilicueta step to Monreal and Jorginho push over to cover Iwobi. At times, if Jorginho couldn't cover, you'd see Rudiger cut out, and he would have to push out and stop Iwobi and prevent him from getting crosses into the box. But it was the same thing we're seeing here. We look at the goal, the opening goal that they do score. It's Willian, and again, it's Bellerin pushing forward to play a pass into Aubameyang. That's how the play started. Barkley plays a pass into Willian eventually. Monreal pushes forward to intercept it. You have Iwobi pulling back into that space. He doesn't pull it back across goal. He pulls it back to the edge. Mkhitaryan not closed down, fires a shot past the keeper. The keeper should save it. He doesn't. But again, what stems from the goal? You have the ball out wide. It pushes Azpilicueta out into that space. Iwobi makes that darting run. Sometimes it was Iwobi and Ozil making that darting run into that half space. But who is there for the pullback? He pulls it back for Aubameyang, doesn't score, fires a shot inches wide. He pulled it back for Mkhitaryan on his pullback. He fires his shot over the net. But this is where they were getting joy in the half spaces. Chelsea weren't doing their job, specifically Willian and Pedro, in terms of not marking the fullbacks getting forward, and the midfielders in Conte, in Willie, in Jorginho, in Barkley, just standing there and watching and not being aware of their surroundings, not closing down spaces. That is a big issue. How does Chelsea recover? Well, the second half, pretty much kind of the same thing. Tyrrell comes in for Xhaka to ensure that Xhaka doesn't get sent off. Chelsea look a bit better. They're pressing much better, closing down spaces. Arsenal struggle to play out the back, and that was the biggest problem. They were struggling to get on the counterattack, and that is where they really suffered. And in the end, it was just Chelsea getting individual chances based off just winning individual duels. We have one where Pedro obviously drops off, spins Monreal, plays Morata into that space. He makes the wrong decision, cross is cleared for a corner. We look at another opportunity where Barkley pulls out two defenders, breaks forward at goal, but his final ball is poor. Barkley evades three challenges, fires his shot on goal, check pushes it away. The game changes with the substitution. Hazard comes on, Kovacic comes on. We see something different. No more Barkley trying to push forward. What happens is that Jorginho's deeper, Kovacic sits deeper on the left. What we get out of Chelsea is the fact that one, more control, one-touch passer, plays the triangles, quick, reliable, retains possession, doesn't give it away. He's also able to help Jorginho on the counterattack. There were times where Ozil broke free, he stepped across. Bellerin breaks free from right back, Kovacic steps across to ensure that they don't break forward. And Arsenal lacked that spunk. There's one good play that really sums up everything. Kovacic a bit deeper, Jorginho's able to push a bit forward. Ozil and Aubameyang are ball watching. Azpilicueta is able to find Jorginho in that space between the lines. He ends up playing Morata in behind. Morata's offside, but it just goes to show how important Kovacic could be to this midfield. When we look at how the game ended, Eden Hazard took over. Yes, Arsenal brought on Ramsey. Yes, they brought on Lacazette, but Hazard was the key cog, beating Bellerin on two occasions. The first one just spinning in behind him, delivering a cross into the box that just evaded everyone. Obviously, Conte had his header that he nodded over the net, but then the final build up to the goal, we see Lacazette giving up the ball, coming back to the flank. Hazard beats him, then beats Bellerin, pulls it back. Who is it? Marcos Alonso firing a shot into the net. When we break down the game as a whole, Arsenal didn't press well. They allowed Chelsea's defense, center backs, and Jorginho to dictate the tempo of the game, create chances from deep. Willian had his opportunities from the left. Chelsea pressed well to ensure Arsenal didn't play out the back, and that's why they started well. But when they sat back, Willian and Pedro didn't do their defensive jobs. The midfield were ball watching, and Arsenal overloaded wide areas to ensure they got back into the game. But the second half, Chelsea were getting the better of the individual opportunities. Then when they brought on Kovacic and Hazard, they won the game from there. Kovacic's additional control, Hazard's individual brilliance, Chelsea are off to 3 points. And so far, so good for the Blues. But as for Arsenal, some improvement, but they're just not there yet. But let me know what you guys think. Can Arsenal finish in the top four following this slow start? How good can Chelsea be? And should Mateo Kovacic instantly slide into the Chelsea starting lineup? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.